Portions of Channel 3 Eyewitness News are closed captioned for the hearing impaired. WFSB Channel 3, Hartford, New Haven. From Channel 3 Eyewitness News, the news most people watch. This is Eyewitness News NightBEAT with Jim Handley, Candy Keith, Bruce DePriest Weather, and Mike Adams Sports.
Good evening. A day of mourning in Liverpool, England, the day after. Many of the 94 people killed in yesterday's stadium stampede lived in that city. Tonight, British lawmakers are promising changes to prevent a similar tragedy. Doug James has details.
Prime Minister Thatcher came to see for herself, to get a first-hand report on what happened here at Hillsborough Stadium on Saturday afternoon. She stood for several minutes on the spot where more than 90 people died, paying particular attention to the metal barriers which caged in the spectators who were crushed. And then she promised a full public inquiry.
The traumatic shock will be terrible, and whatever decisions we have to take will have to be taken because we can't go through this again.
Thatcher then went to 2 local hospitals where 17 people remain in intensive care. She spoke with some of the less seriously injured, as reporters did earlier.
When I got outside, I was lying on the floor, and there was some fella lying on the floor next to me shaking, and he asked me, could I hold his head? And I was holding his head. The doctors were running backwards and forwards to him, shouting, get him an ambulance. And in the meantime, he said to me, he just looked at me and said, help me, and he died in my arms.
Throughout Sheffield, there was a feeling of utter disbelief. A steady stream of mourners brought their flowers and their sympathy to the stadium gates, now known in this community as the Gates of Hell. There's no question now, overcrowding was to blame. As the match began, the turn-of-the-century stadium was already jammed, yet the police opened a gate and allowed thousands more into the ground. Not just into the ground, but onto the terraces where fans were already so tightly packed they couldn't move. Despite mounting criticism, the police refused to accept blame for what happened. Only a full inquiry can determine exactly what caused Britain's worst-ever sports disaster, an inquiry which is already well underway. The authorities hoping to learn a lesson from what happened here so that it never happens again. Doug James, CNN, Sheffield.
Meanwhile, at least 27 people were injured today in the Netherlands when fans of 2 rival soccer teams there went on a rampage at the Olympic Stadium in Amsterdam. Riot police moved in, arresting dozens. Another find tonight in Mexican soil, 2 bodies buried on a farm just 2 miles from a ranch where a mass grave was uncovered last week. Investigators say it's likely the victims were killed by the same group suspected of performing human sacrifices on those 13 others. A 77-year-old man acting on a tip from children discovered the latest grave. Toys are pouring into a California hospital tonight for a 3-year-old girl who survived a killing spree. Carmina Salcido was discovered yesterday at a dump site, her throat slit and her 2 younger sisters murdered. Police say the man accused, their father, is still on the lam tonight. Ramon Salcido's rampage began Friday when he killed 4 relatives and a co-worker in the California wine country. After a day of searching, state police divers find no sign of a missing fisherman in Colebrook. He was out with 4 other men in a boat yesterday at the reservoir when they started to take on water. 4 others swam back to land a quarter of a mile away. They tried to help the man, but say he was pulling them. Police are not releasing the name of the missing fisherman. The federal government is working to make it easier to evict public housing residents who engage in or allow drug activity to take place on their property. Housing Secretary Jack Kemp tonight is announcing a rule change that would make it a violation of public housing leases to use or sell illegal drugs. Currently, such evictions are cumbersome because there is no direct provision for eviction on those grounds. Connecticut is calling on computer industries for additional tax revenues tonight, those with a Connecticut connection. Department of Revenue examiners are on their way to the heart of the software business in California, the Silicon Valley. They'll take a first-hand look at more than 1,200 computer companies over the next 2 weeks.
All of these companies were visiting, probably solicit sales in Connecticut. To a greater or lesser extent, they may have their employees or agents of them making sales in Connecticut. They may owe us corporation taxes or sales taxes. So it looks to be a very productive visit.
The DRS is also cracking down on Connecticut residents who dodge higher taxes by going out of state to buy large quantities of alcoholic beverages and cigarettes. Bannon says the effort is not aimed at casual buyers. Well, 2 days and counting if you're a procrastinator. You know what I'm talking about, federal tax returns. And you're not alone. Others just like you are packing the waiting rooms of tax preparers in search of the best return. This year we got a 3-day extension, deadline midnight Tuesday. And if you can't get it together by then, tax preparers advise filing automatic extensions by Tuesday's deadline. Well, still to come on the Night Beat, $69 million before taxes going up for grabs in Illinois. We'll see if anybody won. And Connecticut park goers say they're still on the losing side of the governor's newest park proposal. Stay up with us.
Could your kid be a hit in Hollywood and earn a showbiz fortune? Child Stars, the inside stories only on the next Entertainment Tonight.
At 7:30 on FSB-3.
Spain's ambassador to Lebanon is one of 18 people killed today in heavy fighting between Christian and Muslim gunners. It's being called among the most intense in Lebanon's 14-year-old civil war. Almost 20 straight hours of artillery exchange. At least 90 people are injured. Shells exploded around homes of U.S., French, and Egyptian ambassadors in Christian East Beirut. A bomb destroyed the transmission tower for state-run radio. A British newspaper tonight ties the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 to Muammar Gaddafi, a Palestinian group, and Iran's Revolutionary Guards. The report quotes American intelligence sources who say the plans for the bombing were first drawn up with help from Libyan officials in Europe, who helped the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine in implementation. 259 people were killed in the tragedy over Lockerbie, Scotland. In Alaska, the Coast Guard reviews an Exxon cleanup plan tonight as fishermen continue to avoid waters fearing contaminated catches. Today, workers began using a new system for cleaning the oil-soaked beaches. It's one that may do more harm than good. Pat Etheridge reports.
The enormous slick is spreading its tentacles and its threats in new directions. So far, Exxon says it's recovered about 20,000 barrels of oil. That's only about 840,000 gallons of the 10 million unleashed from the tanker more than 3 weeks ago.
Pretty bad, but this will clean up.